JFIN stock. This is the Jiayin Group, and they are in China and Shanghai. They trade on the Nasdaq, and the big news today is that we don't have the news yet. They're getting ready to release quarterly reports, and it's just gone absolutely nuts. They've been on a downtrend since they started, and this is a company. It's a fintech company in China that connects investors to borrowers. It's just kind of a middleman platform for investors to get funding. And take a look at what the stock has done here, uh, getting getting ready for getting ready for the reports to come out. Yeah, so this is nuts. I mean, they've traded from around $10 down to around $2 or something, as it's just kind of come down, and now it just blasts off. And the technicals on this are actually pretty interesting too. And so this one is not a news blast where it's gonna just peak and reverse down, because we haven't even gotten the news yet. This is all leading up to leading up to a report. So this is crazy. I mean, we've already gotten a bull pennant breakout, and now we have another consolidation zone. And so this thing could break either way, and the price action is absolutely nutty. I mean, it's from 250 to 25. I mean, this is absolutely crazy. The Jiayin Group. So yeah, this isn't my normal report where I say it's like a hyped over move that's just going to reverse down, because we don't even have news yet, and I don't know how good their report could possibly be to justify this kind of price movement in a day or two. But this is just nutty. This is absolutely crazy. And then I guess just mentioning like the Chinese stock listed on the Nasdaq, you have the weird accounting rules where there's just a higher risk of some kind of situation where people are cooking the books or something like that, like the Luck and Coffee thing. Um, and then also just increasing tensions between USA and China right now, with all the US warships all in the South China Sea, and China basically taking Hong Kong and um, aiming for Taiwan next. And now the whole Western world is basically just letting them take Hong Kong and sort of thinking about defending Taiwan. I don't know what's going to happen, sort of militarily, but China and the U.S. are not exactly friends right now. And the U.S. definitely has not extended a dollar swap line to China. Um, so yeah, there's huge international tension, and so just legally and politically, those are risks to take into account for investing in a Chinese company that's on a U.S. exchange. Um, there's not a whole lot of stuff like this that I would or there's nothing. There's not a single Chinese company on a U.S. exchange that I would want to hold long term, just because of all of those risks. But probably this is not a long term thing that most people are looking at this for. This is a hypey kind of, day trading kind of scenario that people are looking at. And just on the technicals, this doesn't it doesn't look like it's coming down. I mean, this could break either way. It looks like it's about to break either way, and it could go up again. And so this one is technically kind of hard to predict what's gonna happen here. This is just kind of a pennant, and could break either direction. I would say more often than not, these kind of wide pennants will be a continuation pattern. Um, but it's just so crazy already. I mean, if this thing breaks higher, I mean, this would be the nuttiest move ever. But as far as technicals go, it looks like it could. It looks like it is more likely to break up. So this thing's crazy. Um, let's take a look at some other stuff. I don't know what to look at. What's Bitcoin doing? Oh, nothing too interesting. So Bitcoin is in a bit of a wedge kind of thing. Yeah, so sort of on the longer term Bitcoin outlook, it has a couple reactions off of this bottom support, and so this is a good bottom support. And the top support has been trending down, and right now it looks to be moving up from this support, but it's also wedging right now, kind of coiling. And so this kind of shape, it doesn't have to completely coil down. I could see this going for, who knows, until the end of the month maybe, to sort of fill this coil. And then I want to see if we get a bull side kind of move, and if we get inflation. So basically, I think inflation would be really good for Bitcoin, and the deflationary scenario would probably not help Bitcoin as much. I think the deflationary scenario would be bad for silver and kind of blah for Bitcoin, and would should still be okay for gold. But as for now, Bitcoin's not doing too much interesting. It's sort of an upward wedge, which I suppose would be more likely to break down than up. But yeah, I mean, Bitcoin, whatever. Bitcoin, the technical stuff, who cares? But as far as the fundamentals go, I think that the interest rates and the DXY are interesting to look at. And the DXY is pushing down right now, which is inflationary scenario. And that should be good for Bitcoin. And so if it does kind of run out towards the end of the month here and keeps consolidating, it'll be really cool to see what the interest rates on the DXY kind of do as inflation indicators. And if we get higher inflation indicators, I think that would be a good look for Bitcoin. And on the bullish side, Bitcoin needs to get away from this downtrend line and just get away from this whole zone that it's been reacting in for quite a while. So that's kind of a cool look at Bitcoin. Oh, I don't know. What's the Dow Jones doing? So the Dow Jones is kind of industrial tech companies. It's a small index, and it's been hypey, and yeah, it's kind of just chilling and turning over. Okay. Um, so I mean, this is not looking too different from the S&P really. Right now, it's kind of broken across this average and gone up into bull territory and hasn't tried to reverse back down. Whereas like the small caps and the financials are turning down a little bit more and looking more bearish. That's yeah. Wait, yeah. There you go. Okay, so yeah, the oh, I guess this is kind of a similar. Yeah, this is kind of a similar bull market support line that the Russell rejected off of, similar to the S&P. And financials never made it up high enough and haven't really been able to stay above this moving average. So it's a little bit bearish on those sectors, the small caps and the financials, uh, right now. But then of course, like the Nasdaq is just going nuts and hasn't shown any kind of bearish signals at all. Um, but yeah, as far as Bitcoin goes, I would think that inflation would be good for Bitcoin and good for gold and silver, all the alternative currency kind of plays. And deflation would get really, really complicated if we get that complicated deflationary scenario where other currencies are inflating more than the US dollar is inflating. And if commodities are kind of coming down lower than those currencies, that's when things get more complicated. The inflationary scenario is, I don't know if it's better or worse. It would be really bad for the dollar, and it would be good for the other currencies. And generally the stock market would go up with inflation, but not always the case if the dollar really gets in trouble. Um, as we've seen with some other world reserve currencies, when they start going into high inflation or kind of bankruptcy scenarios for the country hosting the world reserve currency, um, not always good for the not always good for the stock market of that country. Um, so that's kind of the outlook now, is just trying to still figure out if we're heading towards inflation or deflation. Right now it's not really indicating either one. And we're just kind of waiting on JFIN to come out with the news about how the Fed's going to respond to what's going on right now, and if the Fed liquidity is going to decrease as the Treasury issuance increases from the government, which would decrease domestic dollar liquidity, uh, or if the Fed wants to stay ahead of the Treasury, and that would be increasing the domestic liquidity. So that's kind of the look for the liquidity on the domestic stage. And internationally, it looks like um, not so much of a liquidity issue in the international banking system at the moment. And yeah, so this whole liquidity squeeze got pretty much handled in a matter of like a month and a half, which is pretty insane. And now it's more of a look at solvency and treasuries. And if we go into high inflation and they're issuing a bunch of treasuries, then the Fed printing is not limited by like dollar amount or something like that, but it is limited by inflation. Like the Fed does not want high inflation, so they'll have to back off if inflation starts kicking up. The Fed's going to be in trouble, and it's raising interest rates to curb inflation. At this point, with super high debt, is, I mean, almost not an option. I don't even know if we go into high inflation sooner than later. I don't even know what they'll do. It's going to be a really complicated thing as far as the Fed goes. I don't think the Fed basically has zero tools to work with if we go to high inflation. Whereas if we're in the deflationary scenario, the Fed has a lot of stuff they can fiddle around with. Um, but as for right now, it's not really trending in either direction. It's just kind of everything's just kind of sitting and waiting. And I'll get the Fed news out as soon as I can when we get it. And this is not trading advice. And good luck trading stocks on the Chinese exchange that just go absolutely nuts before the news even comes out. And yeah, happy trading.